wasn't it great to see some vision of football? Feels like it's been quite a hectic off-season for us all, and off-season it's also been very important. I'm sure it's going to help us get back to where we want to get to as a footy club, and also set us up for where we want to get to as overall have sustained success. What I want to go through tonight in this forum, as Gary touched on, this is a report on overall our performance as a football department and as a club. And every time we talk about that, we'll talk about our AFLW team. So I'll talk about that and some progressions we've made in that area. Also some background of what we've all been through together, having been here for a period of time. We've been on this journey together. There's a lot of familiar faces out there, and just the background of where we've come from as a footy club. Then we'll go through 2019, obviously spoken about that, Gary and Glenn, and part of the review that was presented to the board in October. First of all, I want to talk about there'll be some high level information that I'll go through. So really there's a level of detail that we'll get to, but it's really I want to talk about 2 or 3 key things. Obviously there's question time afterwards if you want to go into more detail, but I'll be really focusing on 2 or 3 of the key areas. We'll then get to hear from Simon Goodwin. We'll then hear from Darren Burgess on his first couple of weeks at the footy club, or first 6 weeks. He's only been paid for 2 weeks, but he's been here for 6. And then I want to touch on as well moving forward, because the feeling at different times, even coming here today, we feel like, is everyone think we're 17th? And we are, the ladder tells us we're 17th, but we want you all to know we don't behave like we're the 17th place team. We don't make decisions like we're the 17th place team. Reality is that's what the ladder says right now. And we wouldn't have been able to make the changes we've made and attract the people that we have attracted if people thought the same thing about us being a 17th place team. So I think it's important that we all leave with that mentality. So firstly, just on the AFLW program, just some stats to start off with to be proud of. We're the second most games won over 3 years. Unfortunately, we've missed the finals every year by percentage, which has been disappointing, but we've been able to have a level of success with the women's program in the 3 years it's been included. We've got a very high percentage of players retained, and that's really important because it shows that the culture we're setting up with the women's program, as new expansion teams come in every year and they get attracted by being able to get paid more money to go to different clubs, we're really proud of we've been able to retain a number of our players, particularly the ones that have been inaugural players now for the 3-year period. Within the trade period, we made some changes there, bringing in some experienced player like Libby Birch. Made a closer connection with our VFLW team. We had a VFLW team now, the Casey Demons, for 2 years. And really what that means now is our women's program is a 12-month program. Yes, they put the Melbourne jumper on for a 4 or 5 month period, but then they also, a number of them play for Casey Demons as well. And that's really good for the girls' development and the coaching that they get during that period. Some additions we're making particularly in this year. We understand that right now this is a start-up competition and we can only pay the girls what they get paid. But we think it's really important of other opportunities that we can create for them as a footy club. And exposing them to our networks and mentoring opportunities, we think that's a really important aspect that we can do as a footy club. We're going to really ramp that up in the next season. Also, in additional resources in sports psychology and nutrition, we've added some people in those areas. And probably excitingly, I've recruited our first 2 Gaelic footballers. I've had some feedback that when are we going to get back into the Irish for the men's program, and then to see this as our first step of getting back into that. We've got some exciting players that have come over. They've both been just this week all-Ireland players, so we've got really the quality players of Gaelic footy, and they're excited to be around the club. They've been here 2 weeks. They can't believe this weather, neither can we all, but they're going to be great additions to our program. Also got the return of Daisy Pearce, who's a pretty handy recruit as well, and what a great story that's going to be. A player to come back after having twins, and even though she wasn't part of our team, she was always part of our club, and we look forward to the journey that she's going to be on and the ups and downs that she's going to go through, not only through pre-season but in the season ahead. And also the facilities that we touched on. And I'll just go to this slide, and this is an artist's impression. It'd be great if it looks that nice. But really that's just what it is going to look close to that visually. What is inside there is brand new change rooms for our AFLW and VFLW program, and also that big building that's the addition is a brand new gym and an indoor training area as well. So every time that we want to go out there as an AFL team, every time the girls are out there, we're going to have no shortage of the things that we need to run our program out at that facility. So it's a really important part, and as Purdy mentioned, this has been part of the state government $5 million funding, the City of Casey $2.5 million funding, and the AFL $500,000, so an $8 million project, which is really exciting for us. This is the journey we've all been on. Slide looks good for a little while. So really, it's a little bit of a reminder of where we've come from, and I've been through this journey with you all, and really it's to show that for 5 years, we really showed some really good progression. And this on this chart is our games won and obviously the years below. But through that period, there's a lot of things that have happened during that period. It's been an important part of our ambition is to have some sustained success. And to get that, you have to go about it the right way. It was about not going about it in any different way, but it had to be really planned. And the way you have to do that is you have to go to the draft. Go to the draft, get your talent in, which we did. We maximised our opportunity down the bottom of the ladder, which is what we're doing this year. Maximised our ability to get our handle on these players, and then through that time, add players during the trade period. And we can see that, the progression that we had with wins. Also, importantly, during that time, is that we were able to maintain our coaching, our game plan as well. The transition from Paul Roos to Simon Goodwin was a really important part for the club in building our sustained success. Every team that's had success has had sustained senior coaches for a period of time. And to make that transition, the role that Paul Roos played for our club for that period of time, then the transition he made with Simon Goodwin was seamless for that couple of years. Obviously, it then goes down quite dramatically in 2019, and as has already been touched on, we felt that we hurt just as much as you did, and sometimes more, because we got caught up in the excitement of 2018 and all that brought with that, and we had expectations of going further again. Sometimes the temptation is that when you're going through decision making is all we have to do is go from one step further. We made a prelim, it's just one step to get into a grand final and one step to get to a premiership. Actually, it's actually got to restart again and have that same attitude as what got us to that prelim final. We have to go back to making sure we do all those things right. Just to give you an idea of how we look at our performance and measure our programs, we break it up into 3 different areas. And these are key questions that we ask all along. First of all, the key question is about our playing and our playing list. Have we got the talent? And I'll go through that, but I'll tick off that, yes, we have got the talent. We think we've got enough talent to deliver what we want to as a footy club, and that is sustained success. The next question is about the programs. Have we got the right people and the right programs? And that's really what I spent a lot of time on this year, is delving into that. And we did have some forced changes with David Misson, who was leaving as high performance manager. And really over this period of time, being able to take a real deep dive into all our programs. And I'll go through a little bit of the changes we've made within that. But it's a really important question we have to ask. And the third one is, how well do our players know their roles and each other? And this one is about, if you think back to all the great premiership teams and teams that have had sustained success, the little comments that they make that they look like they've played together forever. He just knows what that player's doing. This defender plays with that defender. They just, sometimes it looks like they've got more numbers on the ground. The people that talk about Richmond, they just all seem to know their role. They come in, they play their role. The way you build that is actually by training together and playing together. And a really important part of it, and that's, again, part of our strategy of bringing in players at the same time through the draft, was to get them training and playing together. And it was really an area we missed out on this year, and a key reason for why we performed the way we did. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be, these are the headline topics that we're going to talk about. I'm going to probably focus on the top 2 more than the other ones just for tonight. First of all, I just want to talk about player availability and conditioning. I'll go into a fair bit of detail about that. List management needs, which we've addressed through the trade period, and still an opportunity as the draft comes up. A refreshed leadership group, a leadership program. We think there's an opportunity in there, and we've got some exciting things that we're going to be doing in that area. Department structure and roles. Football departments are changing. They're getting bigger as more teams get in. The evolution or the importance of data and how you manage that. So you might have seen some commentary already, some changes we've made with our structure. But it's becoming really important. Whenever we look at our department, we have to keep looking at the skills and the skill set required and the roles within football departments. And we've made some changes within that area. And one of the key things we need to continue to focus on our environment. And it's a really important thing that once we're looking at all the things that went wrong, there were some real positives as well. That we didn't get to the end of the year and we'd finished 17th and had all the things that happened this year. We didn't have an anarchy situation where all the players wanted to get up and leave. Players still wanted to be at Melbourne Footy Club. People still wanted to come to Melbourne Footy Club. And that's something we can be really proud of, the environment and the work that Simon's done on building strong relationships with his players and staff. And the final thing will be some adoption of some game style modifications. And Simon will go through a bit of detail on what we're talking about within that. The next 4 or 5 slides is just going to be information, and it's information. I've done a few of these in the last few months, and whenever I talk about injuries, people say to me straight away, oh, these are excuses. These are not excuses, these are reasons, and you deserve to see these reasons, but hopefully when you look at this, I'll explain a little bit of the impact that it's had on our team. Firstly, not great reading, 2018. First of all, that's a list of the guys that had, I'd call medium-term recovery operations. So there's 12 or 13 guys up there. And why it's important, the medium-term operations, if I put it into context, is that the great thing about playing finals is you start later. You start later in pre-season, so we started our first training session was into the end of November, early December. So when someone's out for 3 months, that means they don't start training with the group until February. So look at the guys up there. There's a lot of our guys that are crucial for our team, obviously, and a lot of them are in the midfield. And I'll go through a bit of details in there. I'll put a little positive slant on there. You might have noticed as well, 2019, the number's a bit less. And we only had 3 off-season operations, which sets us up really well. All that flows into, unfortunately, is overall the pre-season that players complete. Now, if you look up on the screen now, what this is our midfielders and the percentage of pre-season that our midfielders completed. You can see right down the end, the old Fox, Jordan Lewis, he did really well. He did 96.2% of pre-season and finished off his career really well. Gorney did a fair percentage of pre-season, but all the guys in the red had under 50% of pre-season completed. Now, bearing in mind our pre-season was shorter because we made finals, which is a great issue, and we hope we have that again and again. But also for the first time we had an extra week of holidays, so they had 3 weeks of holidays over Christmas. So for modified pre-season, that's the numbers that our midfield did. What I'd like to point out is the tickies that they played 15 games or more. So a great effort by these players to actually play 15 games or more and actually perform the way they did. For Clayton Oliver to tie with Max Gordon for our best and fairest and to play every game was a great achievement, and even those guys, off the back of having the pre-seasons they had, was a great effort by those individual players. So teams can put up with off-season operations and teams can put up with modified pre-seasons. But when I get asked about what happened this season to us, I'd say we never got any momentum throughout the year. If you think of other teams that had injury issues, they also, along with having their injury issues for a month or 6 weeks, they actually also have periods where they had stability as well. And this slide is a fair bit of detail to it, so I'll take you through it. We played 39 players this year, which was the highest in 2019. If you can see it, 34 was the other team, so Brisbane played 34, Geelong and West Coast. We had 10 players that played all the games or missed 1 game. Now, some of those were on that list before, so great effort, they played every game, but off the back of a pre-season, so obviously they weren't optimally physically prepared, but they did a great job. The next one is we played 60 total changes throughout the year. That's the highest in 2019. Again, comparing it to a few of the teams that particularly came with a strong run the back half of the year, the Western Bulldogs and Brisbane, they had 34. So their changes week in, week out. So talking about stability and cohesion and trying to get players playing together week in, week out, we had 60 changes throughout the year, and not 1 week did we go in with no changes. And you see again that Brisbane had that 6 times. So if you put all those pieces together, it's off the back of an off-season where we had a lot of operations. Now those operations had to happen. We'd had 2 years of good performances, and a lot of them were shoulder operations. Clayton Oliver is playing with 2 shoulders that needed operations. He had to get it done. So a number of those players, it wasn't a decision by the club that they had to get it done, or it was a choice, yes or no. It was actually they need to get them done. You start off with that. You start off with the pre-season numbers that we have and the percentages, and then the flow on that has through the year. So Glenn touched on that we had a strategy to get out of this, the pre-season that we had, and our strategy was we're going to get these players back, we're going to have some consistency with those players, and by the second half of the year, we'll be right into a mode where we're playing our best footy, and we just never got that throughout any of 2019. So there's the numbers of AFL games missed. So we had 179 AFL games missed, which is the 4th highest in AFL history. To add a bit of context to that, 2018 we had 83 and 2017, 94. The reason why we go through all that and is because if you put that all together, what that actually results in, it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge because players haven't trained together. You know, Clayton Oliver, the first time he kicked it to Tom McDonald was in the middle of February. We're in our JLT 2 game. The impact of our midfield being in rehab, not being able to have that increase their understanding with Gorney around stoppages and the cohesion they could build up through there, puts challenges on us and impacts understanding and the games and sessions played together. The extra challenge it puts on is on match committee. A number of times we sat in match committee and you would have seen it, that we had to play players in roles that they weren't their best roles. And the classic example is Bailey Fritz. And for situations where we needed a good kick and a good runner on the wing, he had to play on the wing. Is he a winger? No. Do we want to play him up forward every week? Yes. And that's what we want to do. We want to play those guys. So that is what happens, and that's an example of what has happened a number of different times throughout the year. We had to play guys in different positions just due to the unavailability of our players. So that puts challenges on the coaches, and also it puts pressure on our ability to play the way we want to play. We play a physical game of footy that is relied on our contest work and our running from contest to contest. And people described our game style in 2018 as brutal and dominant, and we weren't able to play that way physically. And what you get at the end of all of this, and you mix it all together, is we have a game style that is unrecognisable as Melbourne Footy Club. And all the questions that came up and comments that came up were spot on. Near the end of the year, it looked nothing like Melbourne Footy Club. Because what we needed to do is we need to modify things to adapt to the physical capabilities of our players. We had to modify things to adapt to us not dominating our contest. We had to modify things because players lost confidence and in their own individual form throughout that time. So as you piece that all again together, you can see the challenges that we had as a team and why we didn't develop any momentum throughout the year. Enough about that. We move on to talent. So talent, I've spoken to the players today and I've spoken to them at numerous times throughout the year that the group that we talked to today that are in the footy department, they're the group that are going to take us to where we want to get to. Yes, we're going to bring in different players over time, but it's not going to be massive changes because this list has been built over 5 or 6 years of going to the draft and adding players through the trade period. And that is going to help us deliver to our ambitions. In 2019, a number of individuals did not perform to their potential. You all know who they are, and you all know that they can play a lot better than they did. And hopefully tonight you can see some reasons off the preparation they had, but also you can see the impact that it has when you lose a bit of understanding with your teammates. You know, it's a crucial part during the trade periods we need to address was our outside run that obviously got exposed early days based off the pre-season, but we had 16 or 17 players playing the wing through this year. Particularly with the 6-6-6 rule, the wing role has become extremely important, and Simon will go through what that allows when you've got wingers that just play in the wing. It's a really specialist role. We targeted Adam Tomlinson and Ed Langdon a couple of years out for two things. Two things because they're absolutely elite runners. They don't come off the ground, which is a great thing because it allows our midfield to get strongly rotated through there. And they've played the wing nearly their whole career and real experts in that area. So real two targeted guys we need to bring through the trade period. We've also seen some of the trades that we did. And again, this is going back to our strategy that while we're down the bottom of the ladder, we don't plan on being here any further. And we want to maximise our draft position. So the trade we made was about maximising our draft position. And we've currently got 3 and 8. And I say currently because trade options are still right up until draft and right up to draft night about what we'll do that. But that is a great ability to bring in 2 high-end talented players to add to our list. Who is their impact going to be big in 2020? Who knows? But again, it's about making sure that we've continually got this talented group running for as long as we can. The other point is we're moving into our best period as a playing group. And I don't have to go through stats and data about that. You now know that the players we've had and our best players are around 22 to 25 years of age. They've now played somewhere between 70 to 90 games. We're going to have a lot of guys preparing their banners for 100 games this year, which is a sign that we're starting to move into a really important era for us as a footy club. And they've got some experienced people around them. So we've touched on the players and the understanding. And I just want to go through the programs. First of all, one of the advantages that we had mid-season by making some changes with our coaching structure and our high performance structures, we're able to have a look at different roles and different structures and see how they work and pick the eyes out of that, so that worked, that didn't work. And pleasingly, we've put a new structure in place. And obviously, we'll get to hear from Darren Burgess a bit later, but appointing Darren Burgess as a performance manager. We split up the role as well to have the head of medical. I don't have to be speaking up here to say where the trend of the game is going and how important medical support is and how important doctors are for the footy club. Mental health is becoming really an important area, and we have to make sure that we stay ahead of the trends of the game. Concussion is an important area, so being able to put our doctor in the role of head of medical and giving him a lot more responsibilities in that area and a lot more time at the club is really important. We had a refined coaching structure, which I've got another slide. I'll go through that in a bit more detail. As I mentioned, data is really important across the department. There is so much data available. We all know it. We live it every day. So we've got to make sure that we're using it, we're collecting the right data, we're analysing it properly, presenting it properly, and making the right decisions off the back of using that data. So we came up with a new role as a data scientist, so someone who's going to be within our building programs and analysing the information. They have to do a bit of analysis before it gets to the coaches, make sure it's presented really well, so they can help make decisions across there. But we think there's an opportunity within that, is based off the information that performance manager and his team bring together, the data that the coaches bring together. We think there's a great opportunity within that. There's some pre-season program planning that Darren will go into. Some injury prevention programs around screening, load analysis and exercises, which we think are going to add to our program and hopefully give us the best opportunity we have. And also into a new leadership and wellness program. There's going to be, I'm sure, some questions about the leadership and leadership program, which we're happy to ask at that stage. But this is an area that's really important for us. We know that our growth is not going to come from whoever we appoint as captain or co-captain. Our growth is going to come from our overall leadership of our playing group improving across the board. And our wellness program, again, about moving forward, about what the trends are as a footy club. We have to care for our people, we have to care for our players, we have to make sure we're ready for the demands of the game. We're in a high-pressured industry. That's not going away. In fact, it's only going to get more high-pressured. So there's two ways of dealing with that. We either run away from it and we put up with the consequences of that, or we actually embrace it. We set up an environment that is really safe for our players and staff. We give them a toolkit to actually deal with the pressures of AFL football and then the pressures of actually being on the middle of the MCG and the performance psychology that's required within that. So my last slide is in the coaching structure. So really highlighted there is, in blue, is some of the changes from last year. So really excited to attract Alan Richardson. He's going to play a crucial role for us within the football department, within our coaching structure. Predominantly it's going to be around supporting Simon with the game style, challenging Simon about our game style, challenging him about what we're trying to do moving forward, staying ahead of the curve in innovation, looking at trends, and also in developing the rest of our coaching group as well. Justin Platt has moved into our forwards area. You can see Sam Radford is a development backs, but he's also our VFL senior coach. Again, one of the advantages of the changes made mid-season was Sam stepped up to be our VFL senior coach for the second half of the year, did a terrific job, and we're really excited by him coming on full-time within that role. I can hear the murmurings about a goal-kicking coach. So, first of all, I said of our ruck coach beyond the goal-kicking coach, what's happening there? But what I'd like to say there, we've had 5 different goal-kicking coaches present to us their programs, and Greg was by far the most impressive. His idea of goal-kicking, how the different components that take up goal-kicking, he did it really well. Obviously got established relationships with the players, and we think that we're going to get some real advantage within that, and I'm sure it's going to make a lot of people happy that we've got someone focusing on that area. And another good signing recently, the specialist coach, we've got Jordan Lewis. We've been able to grab him from Foxtel for a little while. He's going to go right into media, but we think it's really important when we've got good people to keep them around the footy club. Obviously, Jordan, very smart. We think he's going to be a great coach at some stage when he gets through his media stint. But we've been able to appoint him as a specialist coach, so he's going to work closely with Matty Egan on our kicking programs as well. So a couple of changes within that. Thank you. So hopefully that shows that in our coaching structure we've gone probably one less overall. We think it's going to be a lot more efficient with the communication to the players, a lot more efficient with the messaging that we want, and also really targeted on some roles that we think obviously we're going to get a lot of advantage from.